All right, everybody, we are live. Me and the brother Awini Baba, search for Huru. And this evening, we're going to be discussing how does global warming affect our food sovereignty. Now, I'll start off with this story, Awini, real quick. I was in
Mm-hmm.
Mali, in Dogon country, and
Uh-huh.
they were saying how at one time Dogon country, which is now pretty much a desert, was once a rainforest.
Yeah,
And they were saying due to
that's
and
true.
they said there were lions and all types of animals, beautiful animals there, but now I mean it's pretty much desolate. And they were saying
Mm-hmm.
that the reason why um, it's now a desert versus a rainforest is because of global warming. But they were saying that
Mm-hmm.
deforestation played a major role because they pretty much cut down all the trees in turning
Mm-hmm.
Dogon country into a desert. So my question, we can start off with this: is global warming? Is it more is it more man caused by man, or is it Mother Nature, or is it a mixture of both?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to everybody. Uh, yeah, from what I understand about global warming, uh, is basically caused by human activity.
Mm-hmm.
So we cause the globe to warm up pretty much
Mm-hmm.
by destroying vegetation and emitting greenhouse gases. You know, pretty much is human activity. But just to touch on how, if we take Africa as a place, how it has changed so much. Uh, Ancient civilizations used to live in the Sahara. What is the Sahara now?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and you will see by the rock art in caves around the Sahara and whatnot that this was a place that was once very green in terms of vegetation, and human activity just desolated the place. So I do admit we need to take responsibility for what happens as human beings generally. And if we're talking about Africa, then we need to start planting more trees, which is what people in Mali need to be doing, and most people in that belt, including some of us in the northern parts of Ghana, which has less trees. Uh, uh, we need to start, you know, doing more planting. You see, and for this to happen, of course, it requires a little bit of organization to get this done, but it can be done. You see, but more importantly, the reason why I wanted to look at this topic is uh, we need to understand something about food. So before mankind started farming, we used to collect our food from nature straight. We didn't need to farm. You see, so most of the early societies were hunter gatherer societies that got everything direct from nature. No need for farming, no need for domestication and whatnot. As we developed and resources became scarce, we needed to farm because we had depleted nature around us, and we had built civilizations, such as the numerous civilizations that sprang up in Africa, and we needed agriculture. Furthermore, certain areas, had bad climate, and one would argue that the bad climate is as a result of poor vegetation and whatnot. But we did not earlier on in our appearance need to farm. So agriculture became a new thing, a new means of getting food, gradually replacing the ancient way of getting food, which some of us still do, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
In Africa, there are certain fruits and certain foods that grow in the wild, and they come with the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like right now, we're in the season. We just left the season of the shea nut fruit. But yeah, I think some of it should still be around. The shea nut is in season. We have the ebony, which is in season. All of these are wild fruits, and we have several wild fruits that still grow here that we consume. Only that now we don't need to go into the bush and get it. People do that for business because you need to go far and get these and bring them to the market for sale. But in terms of what we began to grow when we, evolved or developed from being people who pick their food directly from nature, what we started to grow is what we found in nature.
Mm-hmm.
This is important because we need to make a distinction between what is natural and what is man made. There are certain foods that are made by man, and certain foods that are natural, made by God, if you will put it that way. And so a lot of the food that we started cultivating was made by God. So when you look at and I'm glad I'm talking to you because you have traveled a lot in Africa, especially
Mm-hmm.
West Africa, which is where I come from.
Yes.
A lot of the grains that are consumed here are indigenous grains. So you find millet being very common among a lot of people in West Africa. Millet is wild. You find the wild rice that grows
Mm-hmm.
naturally. You find fonio, and some other grains. Some of them are extinct now, maybe not extinct, but we stopped consuming them. Uh, and even the leaves that we consume, the vegetables we consume, some people misunderstand Africa. When they come to Africa, they say Africans don't eat vegetables because we don't eat salad and cabbage and carrot.
Right.
You see, but this is wrong because we have wild vegetables which we consume on a daily basis for the most part. You have wild vegetables like the contombre, which grows down south. It also grows up here. Uh, we have the cancansa. We have so many the amaranth, wild amaranth that grows here.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we have a lot of vegetables that I don't even know the scientific names, but I know the local names uh, from where I live. And so if you check the diet or the cuisine here, especially where I come from, a lot of it is vegetable because uh, even going to Dogon country, you see they have a millet kind of cake they make, and they put soup in it. They pour soup all over it, and they usually have that for supper, uh, maybe lunch, some porridge or something like that. Uh, so people need to explore more in terms of what a vegetable is, because some people misunderstand that carrot is not natural. Carrot is not natural because you cannot show me anywhere in nature
That's
where
what
carrot
that's what
grows.
Dr. Sebi said, correct?
Yeah, but if you look at it carefully, carrot is not natural because carrot needs you and I to take care of it in
Mm-hmm.
order to get something. But foods or plants that God made, they don't need you and I, and they don't have a problem with all these worms and so on eating them up. They don't need pesticides and fertilizers, all of these things, you know. So carrot is not natural. I don't know where cabbage came from. We need to research these things, find out, do a search and find out where is cabbage indigenous to? Where in the world was it first found, and that prompted it to spread all over the world? People can't tell you. When we say that maize or corn is man-made, then we get people attacking us. But I challenge everybody. I've done the search. I challenge everybody to find out where in the world that maize, as we have it now, or corn, we have it now, grows wild. Because if it's made by nature, then it must be found in the wild, growing without man to take care of it, right?
Right.
So most people, if you look for maize, you won't find it, but you will find a plant called the teosinte. That is the parent plant of maize. That is where the genetics were altered from. And the teosinte, when you see it, you will know that this is the parent plant of maize. And it spreads out just like a tree. It's a plant, but it has several, branches, and it has several of the teosinte hanging from these. And this is indigenous to the Mexican area, you see. So we need to begin to look at this. Now, to go into why this is all relevant for climate change. You see, there are certain companies in the world now, such as Monsanto,
Right.
that are using climate change as an excuse to arrest, or I wouldn't even say arrest, to cleverly steal food away from people. How are they doing this? They are telling us, and they're coming to Ghana, and they've been to so many other countries in Southern America and so on. They are telling us that because the climate is changing, our seeds or our food that we have here cannot survive. And for that reason, they have engineered certain seeds, that are drought resistant. They don't need much fertilizer and what have you. And so they are using this as an excuse to colonize our food supply. This is what is happening in the world right now. Food, or what is used to produce food, which is the seeds, they are being patented as we speak. People are putting things that God made for everybody to consume. Now human beings want to own the right to produce that. This is diabolical, and most people are not seeing it because, obviously, governments are easily bought by these people. They have big money. And they go into countries. If you look at their history in Bolivia, you look at their history in India, you look at their history in Burkina Faso, you look at their history all over the place they go. They go with these new breeds. They call them genetically modified breeds. And they say, you'll get higher yield, and it's advantageous and so on. But they don't tell you, or they tell you this last. They tell you, but when you need to produce next year, you need to come to us to buy the seed. So essentially, if they are able to go to these local farmers, and most farmers all over the world are smallholder farmers. They don't farm huge hectares of land. They just farm a little enough for their family and a little, they can use for their upkeep throughout the year until the next year comes. Now, these farmers are our source of food because they're the ones who do the work and we buy. So they have all these NGOs, and philanthropic bodies going around and spreading these seeds and telling our people, it's good. You should do it. I mean, you get higher yields, and People are not seeing it, but eventually what's going to happen is we will lose the indigenous seeds, wild seeds, and a lot of the seeds actually they're difficult to come by now because of development. Lots of land has been cleared and so on. Now, imagine if we lose our indigenous seeds and we favor these genetically modified seeds, we are going to lose our food sovereignty. It means we no longer control our food supply.
Hmm.
Our food supply is controlled by who owns the seed. You see, and this is what is happening. And it's not only with plants; it's even with animals. A lot of the animals that you find here, such as guinea fowls and so on, I'm getting information that there are people over in Canada, other places who also produce. I don't know where they get the guinea fowl, but they're claiming that they have a guinea fowl that is bigger and whatever. Uh, we need to make a distinction. If man can make food
Mhm.
that is good for our health, then man is God. And some of us know man, the only thing that man can produce, biologically is his own kind, right?
Right.
And plants and animals also produce their own kind. Man cannot go into a laboratory and do all manner of things to come out with a plant that'll be the same, or animal that'll be the same as what nature has made, because nature takes years, thousands of years to evolve things and create things. Man cannot just go and do it in the lab in less than a year and think that the value is the same as what nature made. Nothing beats nature. Now, what some people are arguing, using to argue for the influx of all of these, dangerous genetically modified foods or organisms, is that we don't produce enough. We don't get enough. You have been to Africa. If
Yes.
you go all over Africa, the land is underutilized. There are acres and acres and acres of land just sitting there, and nobody is farming on them.
Let me ask you this real quick, Awini. So they say Africa has the most arable land on the planet. How is, I would say, global warming affecting that? Is it reducing the amount of arable land, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, not naturally, if the globe is warming up, it means that uh, organisms find it more difficult to survive and so on. But I don't, you see, this whole thing about global warming, again, we need to rely on, other people to give us information to make judgments. But this year, for instance, it started raining very early
Hmm.
here, which, you know, it's, it's, it, it's raining regularly every week here. We normally get our rains somewhere, April, late April, thereabout. So it's early this year, and people are going to start farming early. I think that a lot of the talk about African agriculture needing all of this technology is only to for some people to make money, because when you study how we landed where we are in the early 80s, our agricultural extension offices and our agricultural program was very organically oriented. There was the use of humus that was promoted. You use dead matter to enrich the soil and what have you. And you would rotate the soil. You practice soil rotation and so on to ensure that you get the most out of soil. Because one thing about soil is you can't keep planting on the same piece of land always. You'll deplete the nutrients in the soil. That is a fact. right? So crop rotation and all of these techniques were being used. Gradually, the fertilizers and all of these things have been introduced together with certain crops such as maize, you know, and people have used it and they have depleted the soil so much so that nothing can grow without the use of fertilizer. The problem I think with our agriculture is just that it has not received that much attention in terms of investments. That is the problem. You go to, Zimbabwe, which is the pretty much the breadbasket of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's got some of the finest lands in the world. And the problem is not climate change. The problem is the ability to make proper use of the land and practice good agriculture, especially with the crops and so on. You see, so a lot of neglect was given to, our agriculture
Mm-hmm.
under certain programs. You sign on to a program. I think one was the Millennium Challenge account, which
Mm-hmm.
Ghana signed on, which essentially tied government's hands and prevented government from subsidizing the production of rice, or pretty much helping farmers to produce more rice. Why? Because they had companies, abroad with a lot of rice that they wanted to ship into Ghana and make money. So why would you produce your own if you get a fat check from, a multinational company, uh, and you just shut your mouth and let them drain your country? You see, so there's a lot of uh, wrong things going on now in the food supply system that if we don't watch it, we're going to wake up and we don't control food. And this is very basic to living. Somebody else controls our food supply. And that's what's going on now.
Mm-hmm.
You see, somebody else wants to own our seeds that are indigenous to Ghana, West Africa, Mali, Senegal, Nigeria, seeds gifted to us by nature. Somebody wants to put a patent on them and say, this is my property, and you have to pay in order to use it. And that's what's going on in this new, global warming thing. Because people are looking to cash in on it, and they're trying to use that to subjugate Africa and take away its sovereignty when it comes to food supply. That's what's happening.
Awini, somebody has a question. They want to know, how does weather modification affect Africa?
Are you talking about
I guess
cloud
HARP,
seeding?
HARP or whatever. They're saying weather modification. I mean, do you believe in that?
Yeah, well, I don't know what you mean by weather modification. What
Well,
I
there's
know
a
is
system called HARP where the I guess the government or whatnot could change the weather pattern.
you
So
can make it rain, such as
make it
cloud
rain
seeding.
or natural disaster, hurricane. I'm guessing that's what he's referring to. But let me ask another question. What countries in Africa are cultivating GMO? Do you know? Is Ghana?
Well, from what I know,
Ghana?
I don't know, because the issue we are fighting it now with the legislature. You see, because we have a plant breeders bill, which basically is being trying to be introduced into Ghana right now, and we have a group that is fighting this called Food Sovereignty Ghana, and together with so many other groups, agricultural farmers groups and what have you. So I don't really know. I know that there is a drive to introduce GMO into all African countries.
Right.
I know currently some countries in Africa tried it. I think Burkina Faso cotton, because Burkina Faso produces a lot of cotton. They tried GMO cotton, and I understand there was a problem with it. Uh, Last time I checked, India also had a problem with GMO cotton. Um, yeah, but there are from the information we gather, there are some trials, uh, going on, trying to see how to introduce this. I like the posture of some of our chiefs in Ghana, especially the chiefs and people of the Brong and Ahafo region. They pretty much came together and said, we don't want this on our land. You could take it elsewhere. We don't want it. And that for me was very decisive. You can't force me to grow something that comes from elsewhere that I don't know what it'll mean to me in terms of my health and all of that. I don't think anybody has the power to do that. I believe the politicians can be bought.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the first time they betrayed their country. They keep betraying. You have to remember, it is because the political class of Africa has betrayed Africa. That is the truth. And some people, when you say, they say, you hate the government in power and what. I'm not isolating any African country. I'm saying because of the behavior of the political elite, they sold out, and they're not far from selling out in terms of GMO. That I have to admit. The vanguard against this is the people. The people are against it, from what I know, because you can't tell me that there's when the banana I consume, that you're gonna give me some new banana and you're gonna enslave me by it and tell me I can't produce banana unless I come to you.
Right.
That's how sick this is. And the nutrient content is never going to be the same because man cannot produce food. It's nature that produces food for us. So all of those tricks they're playing, it is only the people who are the vanguard against this. I don't think the politicians are going to do uh, any much resistance. I think it's only the people and a few organizations in Ghana that will stand against this.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that there are several channels of bringing this into the country, such as through the NGOs that are into farming, and what have you. So it's a big thing. We have an NGO here. I wouldn't say it's an NGO. It's a company pretty much, and they're into corn production. But a lot of the corn they produce is not for the consumption of Ghana. It is for export. And I think one I think a man died in my mother's village as a result of this because they give you a quota system.
Mm-hmm.
And they tell you, they pretty much give you everything you need to farm, and they come and they take their quota from the harvest. And if you're left with nothing or close to nothing, they don't care. And so some farmers have been frustrated by this. You know, so I want to keep it short today, but I think the crux of what we're trying to say here is some companies in the world, multi-billion-dollar companies,
Mm-hmm.
have ganged up and are using climate change as a means to colonize the food supply in Africa and other places in the world. That is what is going on. And people better watch out for it. Uh, uh, we reject any so-called new breeds because they use all of these traits, new breeds. New breed from where? Is it made by nature or made by man? we reject all of them, and we had better hold on to our indigenous seeds that have proven to be resistant and have stood the test of time. And the the seeds that are likely to resist what is called climate change are the indigenous seeds, not the seeds that are created in a lab.
What I mean, are there any initiatives from the government to ensure that Monsanto doesn't get into Ghana? Or, in fact, hold up. Somebody asked a question. They want to know has the illegal Chinese gold mining in Ghana ruined the soil? That's what somebody said in the chat room.
Well, of course it has. I mean, what is dangerous about what the Chinese, and by the way, we have to understand this in context. You see, I don't blame the Chinese. I blame the Ghanaians. Why? Because how on earth can a Chinaman come from China, come into your country, gain permits to mine, even if they don't have the legal documentation, they are given permission by authorities, chiefs, and other people to do so. See, how is it that we allowed this, and now we want to complain about it? Because we allowed them in. The Chinese don't have the guts to come into Ghana and do whatever they like. It is Ghanaians who give them the permission to do it.
Right.
And so definitely it has ruined a lot of our water supply, especially with the use of mercury and all of those chemicals. You know, uh, the water supply is polluted, the soil is depleted, and I think that the current government has done a good job. I need to give them that in trying to curb this issue, this problem. A lot of small scale mining has been, put on hold since the new government came into power. Uh, there are two sides to this. Some people lose their jobs as a result of this. Not all of the people who were, mining were doing so around water bodies. And with the unemployment rate in the country, people have to live. I'm not saying what they're doing is right, but I know a lot of people, even back in school, some of my colleagues, they used to go to these mining sites to mine during the holidays, and in order to be able to pay their fees in the next academic year, they depended on this for a living. They had nobody to take care of them. So, in some sense, it is a necessary evil. It just has to be done in a much more regulated manner. Uh, I don't see why multinational companies in Ghana can be mining. Big companies have been mining for centuries in Ghana. I don't see why they can be mining, and our people cannot be given licenses, to mine at dedicated places for mining. You see, not all land should be mined on, definitely. But yeah, not to digress, I definitely agree. The activities of the Chinese with the help of Ghanaians, has also destroying the soil.
Let's see if we have any more questions in the chat room. Yeah, well, we pretty much, Marcus, he pretty much answered that. The answer is yes. The politicians in Ghana are allowing the Chinese to pretty much run amok. All right, so here goes another question. This will be the last question. Are you how are you on time, Awini?
Yeah, we're good. We can go ahead
Okay.
briefly.
What exactly is the government of Ghana doing to preserve, protect, and stockpile its seeds for the foreseeable future, given the attention of the Western world to claim ownership to global seeds?
Yeah, like I said, we shouldn't look to the government. We should look to the small farmers, and the smallholders are doing their best, from what I understand. Some of them are being deceived into, adapting these new seeds, so-called new seeds from where I don't know. But the stocking of seeds is done at the local level, because if you want to understand African agriculture, you have to look at the village farmer as the keeper of the seed. It is the village farmer who keeps the seed. Government really does not, go into much into all of these, because remember, we are under a neoliberal system where government hands are tied. They don't go into much business. They just pretty much regulate the economy and leave it to the private sector. That is what is happening. So I don't think it's the government that is doing. I think the people are the ones that are holding on to their seeds. And I think basically the right we have to produce what we want should not be taken away. And the day any government makes the mistake of trying to do that, all hell is going to break loose.
Hmm. Ambassador, are you saying that's going on in Ghana right now? Has vanilla been taken over by Coca-Cola in Ghana?
What, vanilla?
Yeah, has vanilla been taken over by Coca-Cola? I don't know where people get this information from, but I don't know. Is that true? Has vanilla been
What?
taken over by Coca-Cola in Ghana?
Well, I don't have information about
Yeah,
this. I don't even know
I don't know
about. I don't know about vanilla, honestly.
where.
So I don't have information on
Okay.
that.
But he did say Africa should just consider basic crop rotation with nitrogen fixing plants like alfalfa, clover, and fava beans to replenish their soils along with manure.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. You see, I just feel, the government has just, turned its back on farmers. I'm not going to say the government has completely neglected farmers, because there are some things that are going on in the agricultural sector, such as a government initiative called Planting for Food and Jobs. The supply of fertilizers to farmers and so on. Even though I'm all for organic, I don't believe in the use of artificial fertilizer. I think that the problem basically is commercialization and the lack of funding in order to commercialize. I think that's the key problem in Africa. It's not, if you come like to Africa, and as Ghanas have been, there's a lot of land that is not being used for anything. A lot of fertile land, you see, and if you're using human labor, you can only do so much. You see, so agriculture needs to be commercialized, and our markets need to be protected. Because if you produce, if for instance, if I go into rice production, large scale, then I need some kind of protection from the government in order to keep the business thriving. I need to be sure that I have access to markets, especially in Ghana first.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Let's see what else we got in the chat room. Are scientists in Ghana using bioremediation to clean up toxic areas that have been contaminated?
I don't have information on this. Are you talking about contaminated from mining?
I'm guessing, yeah, probably from mining or whatever else might cause.
Yeah, yeah, that'll fall under the remit of the Ministry of Land and with the natural resources. I think, yeah, land reclamation is definitely on the agenda. Trying to get back the land that has been lost as a result of exploiting a mineral. Definitely, but it's very expensive,
Okay.
because people mine, for instance. People can mine, and they really mess up the soil, and so it takes a lot of funds even to level the soil, to level the ground, and to, you know, go about some formal part of land reclamation. It's very expensive,
Hmm.
you see. But I think that naturally, uh, a lot of these chemicals leach into the soil, and the danger is that they may leach into our water tables, underground water. You see, and some people rely on underground water for their own survival. They drink it, you know, a lot of places that don't have these public water companies supplying water to them just drill a borehole pretty much. And so that is the danger with the leaching. But I think the rules need to be enforced more, pretty much.
Hmm. Let's see what else we got going on in the chat room. But Awini, thank you for coming on.
Mm.
You know, it's the Department of Agriculture doing less than what Ghana's farmers demand. All right, how's the Department of Agriculture in helping out the farmers in Ghana?
Yeah, like I said, well, they're doing their best, I would say. But I think that agriculture in Ghana, not only Ghana, and Africa has not received that much attention. For instance, we have the potential to be a top exporter of coffee. We're not doing much in this department. We have the potential to be a top exporter of fonio. We're not doing much in this regard. We have the potential to more than double our supply of cocoa to the global market, even though uh, prices have fallen recently. We're not really like doing much, and this is a systemic problem. If you look at the inputs needed by farmers, they need not only, material inputs such as, all that machinery and so on. We also need guidance, and we have institutions that are supposed to prepare uh, people we call agricultural extension officers. These schools are not churning out many people anymore. The government cannot employ them much because its hands are tied by an IMF, loan or bailout, and it cannot employ against the directives of the IMF. These are some of the issues that the government, the Department of Agriculture, is saddled with. They also rely pretty much on the central government to, disburse money to them to undertake their activities. They're underfunded. Let me put it that way. They're underfunded, and they're doing their best. But I think that if the focus, which it should be, the focus of Africa should be to be the breadbasket of the world, then we need to turn and look at agriculture the way we should have looked at it long, long, long ago, because we possess the climate, we possess, all the conditions necessary to be a food supplier in the world. Why are we importing food that we can produce? That's the question. And you go back and you look at it and you find out some governments angle themselves in some forms of agreement, and they're not able to do much for their farmers. And the Ministry of Agriculture is just an extension of the government, and the government's policy is not to, really revolutionize agriculture, then it's not going to see any support from the government. I'm talking about the ministry in charge. This government that we have now in Ghana, it's pledged to undertake agricultural, projects and reforms and so on. And we're waiting to see how it goes. For instance, it pledged to put a dam in almost every village possible to enable farming all throughout the year, especially in certain parts of Ghana, like where I come from, where we have one rainy season. So we're waiting to see how it goes, you know.
See what else we got in the chat room. Yeah. So what we'll do, Awini, is there anything else you want to cover or share with the people in closing? Or
No, no, not at the moment. I think pretty much we summarized this, that the farmers in the world
Mhm.
and in Africa in particular need to hold on to the seeds.
Right.
You cannot lose your seed. If you lose your seed, you are enslaved to a seed seller. You need to hold on to your seed. If people are not happy about it, they can go to hell. You cannot, yeah, people cannot, they don't have the God given right to make money from everything. There are certain things that God gave. Certain people, if they had the opportunity, oxygen will be for sale. I'm telling you,
Right, absolutely.
everything they want to enslave others. You see, so hold on to your seed. Don't let anybody. The food that God made is in the natural seeds that most farmers have now. That our health is going to go from bad to worse overnight. We're gonna have a spread of cancer and stuff in Africa, and it's coming, but I don't think we're there yet. But we need to put this in check.
All right, perfect. Winnie, thank you so much for coming on. Can you please share with everybody your contact information? People in the chat room are asking for it.
Yeah, you can reach me on awinibaba@gmail.com. So it's AWINI Baba. That's one word. Uh,
At Gmail.
all
Okay.
together. And yeah, you could also reach me on my WhatsApp line, which is +233-249-831-251. That's +233-249-831-251.
Hmm.
Uh,
Winnie.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go
yeah,
ahead. Please. Go
we
ahead.
hope, yeah, we hope to be able to discuss something else next time.
Absolutely.
I've been doing this with Danas for quite a while now. And, it's good to always be on here and sharing with the brothers and sisters elsewhere in the world. So we should keep the community going. But from time to time, we need to check on ourselves in terms of what progress we have made in relation to all these things we're talking about, because we're not just here to talk.
Absolutely. So we appreciate you coming on. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Make sure you go to search for Huru on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and Facebook. Also, if you're new to this platform, please subscribe. Please share. Please like. If you're not super chatting, also go to dynastymirror.com. Go to searchforhuru.com, and make sure you go to amazon.com. Search your name, Dynasty Mirror. Please buy a book. Everybody, thank you for joining us. Till next time, I'll be back on tomorrow night. Peace.